Morning, everybody. Hope everybody had a great weekend. I guess for the purposes of the video, I'll introduce myself. My name is Dan Weiner. I'm with Avison Young, and I'm the current president of the Commercial Industrial Brokers Society of Long Island, otherwise known as CIBS. And today we welcome you to our third installment of EDAC interviews. And EDAC is our Economic Development Advocacy Committee. We formed EDAC in 2019, and it's chaired by our CIBS VP, Mike Rosenfeld from the Rechler organization. And Mike's going to be our host today, and he's going to tell you more about EDAC in a minute. But first, I want to just personally welcome the folks from Rechler Equities, Ted Trias. Thank you for joining us today. Ted, you won't remember this, but my very first real estate transaction that I was ever exposed to in the business, probably, I don't know, early 2000s, 2003, 2004, you were on the landlord side of that transaction. And I remember sitting in the boardroom and thinking, wow, this guy really knows his stuff, and how professional you were, and how respectful. And I thought, I really want to be like this guy one day, And so it's an honor to welcome you guys here today. Ted, that deal died. You never made it. But
bring it back.
But it had nothing to do with you, which is good. So so on the call, you'll also see we have, and Michael introduced you, we have the members of our EDAC committee. But who you don't see, and who will have a chance to ask some questions, is the balance of our CIBS board, which consists of about 19 or 20 people. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mike, and we'll get the program started. Mike?
Thanks, Dan. So I'm going to just go over a little boilerplate, because we are recording this. This does go off and gets archived on the CIBS website for future reference, and for other members of the real estate community who want to go in and get a little bit of education. So welcome to CIBS Economic Development Advocacy Committee's webinar. It's part of our continuing series of conversations with some of our region's most influential officials and real estate professionals. So as Dan said, we've had 3 of these. We had the mayor of Westbury, Peter Cavallaro. We had New York State Senator Todd Kaminsky. So we're hoping to roll this out and make this a regular program throughout the coming years. As an organization, CIBS has recognized the need to support smart growth development, regionally significant infrastructure projects, and the importance of monitoring state and local legislation that impacts Long Island's long-term economic growth and addresses our quality of life interests. Through the EDAC committee, which consists of Dan Weiner, Ted Strategos, Eric Launer, David Panetta, and myself, CIBS has supported a number of smart growth, mixed-use, transit-oriented developments, and have recently recognized proposed legislation allowing for self-certification of building permits and construction documents as worthy of our support. Among the projects that we have supported in the past are the Nassau Hub Land Lease Amendment, the Miller Inn Hotel Project, the Orchard District TOD Overlay in Glen Cove, Seritage Growth's Heritage Village in Hicksville, the Long Beach Super Block development, which was being developed by Engel Berman, and then the 65 Daly Road 55 and over community, among others. Recently proposed legislation that EDAC is in support of are New York State S1003 and S1004, which are the bills that will establish self-certification programs for building permit applications and construction documents filed with local governments. And I think we can all relate to the fact that it takes way too long to get things built on Long Island. So of course, our guest today is Ted Trias of Rechler Equity Partners. And for today's program, our objective is to get an in-depth view of Rechler Equity Partners' current and future planned developments, as well as Ted's take on current industrial trends and immediate challenges facing economic development on Long Island. So let me take a few minutes to introduce Ted to anybody who doesn't know Ted personally and who may be watching this video on at a future date. So one of Long Island's top-ranked commercial real estate brokers, Ted Trias, serves as Director of Acquisitions and Leasing at Rechler Equity Partners since March of 2011. In this capacity, Mr. Trias works closely with a talented group of executives to continue building strong business relationships with Rechler Equity Partners' existing tenants and the real estate community, and is also pursuing acquisitions of new properties as the company looks to aggressively expand its 6 million square foot industrial portfolio. As a high-profile executive at Rechler Equity Partners, Mr. Trias is part of the region's most active full-service industrial real estate company. Rechler Equity Partners leases over 1 million square feet each year and has a current occupancy rate of 98.5%. That's pretty good. The rest of it doesn't even really matter, right, Ted? It's just temporary. Prior to joining Rechler Equity Partners, Mr. Trias was a senior executive director with Colliers International, Long Island. In his 27-year career in commercial real estate, Mr. Trias has represented a number of Long Island's largest portfolios and properties and has successfully executed locally the plans of many of the nation's largest corporations. A current resident of Manhattan with his wife Jackie and his two sons Max and Jack, Mr. Trias grew up in North Merrick, Long Island, and received a BA in marketing from the University of Maryland. So I'd like to welcome you, Ted, and turn it over to you to say a few words about Rechler Equity Partners and yourself.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank the Executive Board of Directors and the Board of Directors for CIBS for having us this morning. We look forward to having a nice conversation about the state of the market. I'm joined with two of my associates, Chris Costa, who is my right-hand man in the leasing of this 6 million square foot portfolio, and Jill Ramirez, who heads our marketing division. Rechler Equity Partners continues to see strength in the market. The industrial sector is at a level I've never seen since I've been in the business in 1985. We continue to be committed to Long Island and its development. And, you know, Mitchell and Greg Rechler continue the spirit of both their father and their grandfather as we expand into Long Island with projects like the Hampton Business District and Gray Barn, which is our residential brand. And we can talk about that at length, about what we're doing and how we're expanding into those markets. We do not see a slowdown in the industrial sector. We are at 98.5% occupancy. Our rental rates are the highest we've seen in our portfolio. We see multiple deals on vacancies and take the time to make sure the tenants that we select are tenants who financially we feel are strong and will live out the terms of their leases. We enjoy and appreciate the support we get from the brokerage community and know how important the brokerage community is to our success. So I'm ready to answer any questions you have and to start the conversations.
Great. So I'll ask the first question. We actually are doing a little bit of different format. We're opening up the questions to the entire EDAC committee. And although I don't see Dave Panetta on the call at the moment, so we may have to jump in and just cover Dave's questions. But the first question is, what is Rechler Equity Partners delivering in the immediate future, and what is on the horizon for the next 12 to 24 months? Can you break that down, industrial, retail, and multifamily?
Sure. Let's start with industrial. We are going to be putting up our last building in the Hampton Business District and delivering that probably this time next year, 100,000 square foot high bay distribution facility at 230 Rogers. We've had great success in the Hamptons. When we first started the project 6 or 7 years ago, the market was not nearly what it is today. We were listing the property in those days at $16 a foot gross, and people thought we were crazy. And we put up our first building, 220 Rogers. We're now on our 5th building, 230 Rogers. Currently, we're at almost 99% occupancy in Hampton, in the Hampton Business District in West Hampton Beach. We will be announcing on the industrial front that we are acquiring a very large parcel of land in the town of Brookhaven, and that announcement will come next month, in which we are committed to build 845,000 square feet of Class A industrial properties, as we did in Hampton Business District. We'll start with our first building of approximately 150,000 square feet and look to deliver that building third quarter 2022. So from the industrial sector, we're looking at close to 1 million square feet of additional buildings to be developed over the next few years. Gray Barn equally has been successful. Gray Barn in Amityville, our first Gray Barn, we built 455 rental units, and we're approximately 97% leased. And we have 2 new Gray Barns that will be under construction in 2022. A 91 unit complex on East Main Street in Patchogue, and an 88 unit complex on Oak Street by the train station in Bay Shore. So our plate is full. As far as new construction is concerned, we stay committed to Long Island and to continue the development on Long Island.
So you mentioned you're building some new industrial space, starting with 150,000 square feet. Is that built on spec, or is that for specific tenancy?
No, it's like what we always do. We're building on spec. You know, we start at the Hampton Business District with 220 Rogers. We put up 68,000 feet, thinking that we were going to have a multi-tenanted building where units could be as small as 5,000 square feet. The first deal we signed is with Tate's Cookies for 35,000 square feet. Who now have expanded at the Hampton Business District, have renewed and committed to us as we've committed to them. So this is a spec building that will be going up. You know, there is a lack of product. Everyone knows there's a lack of product. Specifically for us, that lack of product is just not the lack of product to the community, but for our own tenant base. Our own tenants are asking for us to find them alternatives and to help them with their growth. So it is spec. My guess is it'll be pre-leased, as will 230 Rogers.
And you mentioned about acquisition. And are there any plans to do acquisitions off Long Island and bring the brand to other areas?
No, not at this point. We're a Long Island developer. We're a Long Island family, and we continue to grow both the industrial portfolio and the Gray Barn name on Long Island.
Thanks.
Ted, I have a question. You know, obviously the biggest complaint right now with the vacancies, the way they are, is the industrial market. There's no space. I have, 9 tenant requirements, or, if you're an industrial broker, you have 9 requirements. You can't fill them. You can't find any space anywhere. 20 to 30,000 square feet. Not to mention 5-10,000 square feet. I guess my question is, with all of this, with all of the spec on the horizon, because you see some of these things coming down the pike, they're a year away, maybe they're 2 years away, but they're Class A. They're 850,000 square feet, 1 million square feet. Question is, how will that help the little guy looking for 10,000 square feet, 20, 30,000 square feet? Is that going to continue to be a problem? Do you see, I guess that's the first part of the question. And then the second part would be, do you see spec building for that type of tenant?
That's a very good question. I don't think the planned development that you're seeing on Long Island will help address that sector. To that point, when we developed 215 Rogers, which was a 66,000 square foot building, that was our third building, we answered a call where we saw that on the east end of Long Island, to your point, there were people who needed 2,000 square feet, 4,000 square feet, 5,000 square feet. It wasn't about, I need 60,000 square feet or 100,000 square feet. We built 215 for that audience, and we did extremely well. It filled up the building. It is a difficult time for tenants and for brokers to find space for their tenants. The difference between Rechler Equity and some of these other developments you hear about with their various funds is we will build and divide. 230 Rogers is a 100,000 square foot building to put it up. It doesn't mean I need a 100,000 square foot tenant. I can divide to 20,000 square feet. I can help that audience. The 150 we're going to build in Yaphank will be, in Medford will be visible. So it's not that we're ignoring that audience. We understand that audience, and our projects will hopefully help that audience. As far as our core portfolio, you're right. As soon as you put the property out, it gets leased, whether it's 2,000 square feet or 100,000 square feet. I think as long as there is that kind of demand, I think you'll see more people putting up buildings. I think the problem is everybody's trying to go after e-commerce. They're not looking at the local 10,000 square foot requirement for Farmingdale. They're looking at the 100,000 square foot e-commerce warehouse distributor that they want to try to do a long-term lease on. So there's no short answer to that, but I think we do offer the best alternative for those tenants.
And I guess the second part of that question is, you know, you have these spec developments, Class A, the rents are at the top, right? So how does that affect the rents for the smaller tenant? Do you see enough of this product being delivered where rents will plateau? Or do you think, I mean, can they continue to rise like they've been rising? I know you'd like the answer to be yes, but it's a legitimate question. Like, when does that level off, or does it?
Well, you know, I don't know when it levels off, but I will tell you this. We have not seen those rents yet that you're talking about in these new developments. Let's get the new buildings up. We haven't seen enough new buildings go up. It can't be that a new building goes up and Amazon takes it. Will the local Long Island businesses absorb the rents? That's really the question you're asking me, because after Amazon or Home Depot or Lowe's or any of these companies, national companies, what about the local Long Island businesses? Does a local Long Island business need a 40-foot ceiling? And will they pay $18 a foot triple net? We haven't seen it. We haven't even seen a new building. What new building has gone up that we've seen anything other than what we read in the paper? Amazon taking 250,000 square feet of Syosset, what have you. So our rents are definitely up. I'm not arguing that. We're seeing, you know, probably minimally a 30% increase in rents. I would tell you on some of these leases that are 10 years old that are coming due and people are not renewing, we may be seeing as high as a 50% jump in our rent. So we are benefiting clearly from what's going on. I don't know. The only way it can plateau is either there's too much supply and demand is not there. I think for new development, that could be a risky game. As you put up these, as you say, these projections of 1 million square feet or 850,000 square feet. Well, if market conditions change, maybe those buildings don't get built. Maybe people are paying too much for land. Maybe the land goes on the market at cheap prices. Who knows what's going to ultimately happen? I don't believe that the Long Island entrepreneurs are going to absorb these prices. That's my opinion.
You done, Dan?
Oh yeah, that was mine. Sorry about that. I was
Okay. Hey, Ted, Chris, Joe.
Hey,
Ted, you kind of touched on this a little bit, but you know, we've seen this explosion in last mile distribution and other warehouse and industrial demand. how much space you think can be constructed and absorbed? And how long is this going to continue? Or is it just going to come to, an end? And
Right. You know, it's interesting. I had a conversation with somebody, a broker recently, and when we were looking at this acquisition, we sort of put a map together and looking at all the various proposed development sites. I think we stopped at like 6 million feet, 7 million feet that we saw from Melville heading east, specifically in the town of Brookhaven, where you're going to see most of the development, because that's where you actually had a lot of land. I don't know when it's going to stop. I would like to see one of the buildings constructed, and I'd like to see one of those buildings leased to somebody that is a Long Island born and bred company, to see really what rent did you get, and was it a successful development? If, as an example, if 100,000 square feet of an existing building in Hauppauge is going to trade, let's say you got a 100,000 square foot warehouse with 22-foot ceilings, nice building, and it trades at $11 or $12 net. Does that mean a new development will get, a new building proposal will get 18 net? It's a big jump. Does that tenant who took the 22-foot ceiling, can they even use to their benefit 40-foot ceilings or 35-foot ceilings, all these things being proposed? So there was a study, I think I read a study where they felt that Long Island was about 7 million square feet deficit for the e-commerce business that's out there. I don't know if that's true. I mean, we do see e-commerce transactions going on within our own portfolio.
Yeah.
We're not limited to that in our current growth. We're seeing growth across many sectors: pharmaceutical, food industry, HVAC equipment. An HVAC sales equipment, they don't need 40-foot clear. They need 25,000, 30,000 square feet open up for distribution to get to the contractors. They're not going to go to these sites. So I don't know. I don't think it's even started to say when it's going to be over. What started is the insanity of the land acquisition. So that's what started. We haven't seen the development yet to tell you whether or not it's being absorbed and when it will ultimately end.
Thanks.
So I think Dave Panetta's having some technical difficulties, so I'm going to take over his question for the moment. So we've seen Rechler sell off some non-core properties. Where properties need upgrades and retrofits, will that be tenant driven, or will there be a need to do so based on the competition in the market with other industrial property operators that are entering the market? For example, Winter Brothers and North Point Development in Yaphank. So do you see that maybe some of the older inventory that you have needs to be upgraded physically?
Well, when you say upgrade existing inventory, I think the only things that really get upgraded, for instance, in any of these transactions are common. Maybe it's got too much office space or the offices are antiquated. So that's an upgrade. If you're talking about raising the roof to compete, and I have a 22-foot clear building in Melville and I'm competing with Harts Mountain who has 40-foot clear, no, we're not going to raise the roof to compete. We don't have to, because there is enough demand to take that 22 feet. Where you do see upgrades are upgrades in sprinkler systems, perhaps, where based on new laws, new coverage, different products, class 4 commodities, you may have to upgrade a sprinkler system, again, offices, but there's nothing planned within the core portfolio. A great example is we have a building in Hauppauge, 85 Nikon Court, that's been leased for 10 years. And that lease is coming to an end next year. And that company's leaving. And that's a building that's going to get a complete makeover. But to that point, what is that? New parking lot, new landscaping, upgraded offices, upgraded HVAC. Those are things we would have done anyway, regardless if someone was building 100,000 square feet in Hauppauge to put it up for rent. So, you know, certain things you do to your portfolio to keep it modernized and with, you know, today's tenants' needs. But not drastic. I don't see us knocking down a building to build a building or raising a roof, nothing of that caliber.
Okay. Thank you.
And I have a question on the approval process. You know, ever since I got into the business, Long Island has had these hurdles of high taxes, electricity costs, and approvals. With all the land that you just mentioned, all this land being acquired, how do you guys see that? Is it because you're so large and you have such a good reputation, it's not affecting you as much, or are you also experiencing the difficulty in getting approvals? Because all of our clients, whether they be end users or developers, say that that's probably the number one problem with doing any kind of development out here on Long Island.
Is what, getting the approvals to get the, is that what you're asking me?
Getting approvals, yeah.
Well, I think there's two types of approvals. We've obviously COVID slowed down the building permit process on existing properties, and it became difficult. So, you know, you have a demand from tenants who need space. And when we do deals, you know, we permit our deals, we get updated certificate of occupancy. And so you have on one hand, demand that's looking for immediate occupancy, and on the other hand, you have the frustration of trying to get a building permit from a municipality. So that's one sort of issue, which is a separate issue, which goes to, I think someone was talking about self-certification. As far as we have not had issues on getting approvals for our industrial developments. Where it's a long lead time is on our residential. If we're buying a piece of property to rezone it for a gray barn, that could be a 3 to 4 year process. So it is frustrating, but like anything else, you have to go through the process and do the best you can to get the development started.
So on any of these projects that you have issues with, or, you know, long term, the second part of that question is, how can EDAC, you know, this EDAC committee, this is why we put it together, kind of help shepherd things along and support projects where we can. How can we help as a committee and as an organization? How can CIBS help, not only, you know, you guys, if you, not that you need it, but just the process out here on Long Island for everybody?
Well, I think you mentioned something in the beginning about self-certification. I think that's necessary. By the way, it helps the municipalities too, because of the strain they're having to get building permits out. Being able to get through the building permit process quicker for both the municipality and the developer is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It helps everybody. So pushing for legislation for self-certification is a positive, in my mind, a positive thing to do. Not just because it's us, or any developer, it's also good for the municipality. If they can't handle what's on the table because of the workload, it's best for Long Island to keep moving forward, and it's best for Long Island to keep developing. So that's one way that the organization can help. As far as the zoning and rezoning properties, I'm not quite sure, you know, what can be done. It's just a process, and it's a tedious process. Can it be sped up? I don't know. It's, you know, between traffic studies and everything else you need to do to rezone a property, it's a time-consuming process. I don't know that there's a short answer for that. I think the first step is self-certification. And bring us all your deals. That could help us.
So we touched on this explosion of industrial leasing and last mile distribution, this building boom that has started but hasn't plateaued yet. What do you see it as, you know, the impact to our local roadways? Are they going to be able to handle all this increased trucking? Is the expressway going to become just even more congested?
It's a very good question, you know, and I hope it can, although, again, let's look at where the development is happening, right? Will the new Amazon in Syosset impact the LIE at Robbins Lane? I don't know. It's 250,000 square feet. It seems like it's underutilization, although there'll be a lot of trucks. Harts Mountain building 800,000 square feet in Melville on Pine Lawn. You know, I'm sure that's gonna have an impact on an already stressed out Route 110 and Pine Lawn Road, building an additional 400,000 square feet on Spagnolia Road. I mean, I think Melville, Farmingdale, there could be an implication on the development, on trucking, just by sheer numbers and what's already here. Although, that may be offset by the fact that the office market, maybe the traffic is not as bad from the office market on Route 110, based on what's going on in that sector. I think in Hauppauge, I don't see anything. I've heard of maybe 400,000 or 500,000 square feet I've heard about of developments that's gonna go on. I don't think it's gonna impact Hauppauge. Hauppauge, listen, Haupauge's 18.5 million feet. You know, it's stressed out already with a certain time of days when the pharmaceutical industry lets go and people go home, there's major traffic. Heading east, you know, into town of Brookhaven, I think we'll be fine. I think it'll be fine. I think it'll resolve itself because you don't have that much development going on right now. You do have, many of these sites are right on the expressway. It's yet to be seen, you know, what that overall impact is on our infrastructure. Because let's face it, we only have one Long Island Expressway, there's nothing we can do. And hopefully you can absorb it.
Thanks.
So Ted, we've seen this crazy increase in construction material costs and actually in labor, or we'll call it the lack of labor. Have the cost of these materials like steel, can you even get steel today? Has this come down? Can you get labor to do the construction? Or are we still fighting that battle?
It's definitely a battle. You know, it's very difficult to get steel. That's a good example. So if you're developing, you could be 8 months out from getting steel. Construction costs have gone on. You know, we talk about rents going up. You know, TIs have gone up also, you know, across the board. So where we may be seeing on the core portfolio 30 to 40% increase in rents across the board, we're also seeing those kind of increases in construction. We're fortunate in that many of the contractors that have worked for us or work for us are people that have worked for us for decades and are dependable and will do the work for Rechler because that's a continuing relationship, a mutually beneficial relationship. I have heard, yes, that people are having problems getting labor. Our issue is more in supply. I had a tenant, I had to get some roof fans put in. Taking forever to get roof fans, not us. We just can't get them. Once we get them, we'll install them immediately. So it is a real problem. The costs are a problem. And as the costs go up, let's face it, if all of these buildings get developed between 2022 and 2023, it's only going to get worse. You're already going to, you know, stress out so many avenues to get contractors to do your work.
Thanks. So kind of as a segue from Eric's question on materials, what about labor? Have you experienced any effects, any shortage of labor for projects you're doing? And I guess second part of that would be, do you have a strategy for the prevailing wage legislation that's maybe coming down the pike here on Long Island that might affect everybody?
So we've had some issues with labor. I think our issues with labor is when, you know, one of our subcontractors have had COVID, let's say, that's gone through their office where you can't get them, you know, people onto the job. They're also having problems hiring people. So we've had some issues with labor, although I'm really, again, going back to our core properties, we're delivering pretty much on time on construction, what we estimate to be our timeline. When we tell a tenant, you know, you sign a lease on September 1, we're going to have you in by a certain date. And we always peg that date to the issuance of a building permit because that's where we don't have the control. As far as prevailing wage, you know, in the Hampton Business District, we use prevailing wage. It's mandated on that project. You know, and that adds significant costs to your project. I'm not sure if if your construction costs continue to go up and your labor costs go up, I'm not sure how much as a developer you can absorb if your rent cannot, if you can't get the rent to absorb these increases. So somewhere there's got to be a plateau, because rents can't just keep, as much as we would like it, rents can't just keep going up, because who's going to absorb it?
Thanks.
So I'm going to ask you to put on a different hat for a second, Ted. So, you know, the stock market's continuing to rise. You know, we're seeing a lot of winners. So based on what you see in your portfolio, what sectors would you say are a buy, and what sectors would you say are a sell that we should short?
Well, if you're asking me where I see the increase in my sector, in our sectors, I would say to you that the pharmaceutical industry continues to grow on Long Island, okay? And look for space and need space. I've seen a tremendous amount of HVAC distribution companies come out to Long Island looking to open up shop, 25, 30,000 square feet. We did one on Spagnoli, we're doing one on Hub, we did one out in West Hampton. You know, so that whole building products sector is exploding because of what's going on, because of the development, because of the need for all of the equipment. But that's not to say that we're not seeing our share of manufacturing deals. We are. Defense contractors are growing within our own portfolio. We're looking for more space. So the defense sector, anything related with food is through the charts. You know, we have a lease out now with a food distributor in Melville, and anything food related, again, is doing very, very well. So, and of course, e-commerce. So if you look at the whole e-commerce business and the demand that COVID created in e-commerce, that whole sector is, you know, through the roof. So I would say to you, it's no one single, I don't see one single sector. As far as anybody leaving us or not doing well, you know, the only fallout we had when COVID first hit in 2020, we lost anybody relating to trade shows. Were the first that we saw, because there were no trade shows. They could not survive. I'm talking about the smaller tenants, not these large trade show companies. We're losing 2 manufacturers whose leases are coming to end, who have other facilities in Pennsylvania, and both are going back to Pennsylvania. That's about all I've seen on fallout in the Rechler portfolio. I've not seen anything drastic. Now, we don't own a lot of office buildings, but we've had our fair share of issues with our office buildings. When I say fair share, we lost 10,000 square feet of tenants, which is not a lot compared to other developers. So that's the only other sector that's really the unknown right now. What is going to happen? And you're all doing office deals, you see it more than we see it. Really, what's happening in that sector? You know, is remote going to continue and will continue to hurt the office market? Thank goodness you can't remotely warehouse or manufacture from your home. So it hasn't impacted us to a great degree. But really, when is that plateau going to happen? When are we going to figure out, well, how many people can legitimately work from home to make a company productive? And what does that mean to the office landscape, the office market?
Yeah, I think the jury's still out on that. We're still seeing how it plays out.
Yep. I think
So I think now would be a good time to open up to questions from the board. I know Gary Shacker has a question and Mario Asaro has a question. So Christine, maybe you could open that up to the board.
during the Q&A, Christine. You're on mute.
I'm going to Gary and I'm going to let him talk live. I thought that's what you wanted.
Okay, great.
Okay, Gary, you should be able to speak now. Just unmute yourself.
So my question was actually already asked by Ted. I posted it to you before. I think it was Eric, about the dramatic
Gary?
increase in building. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay. About the dramatic increase in building costs and how they're going to affect your projections and your projected future rents, what they might be. I mean, are we looking at 20+ square foot net rents based on maybe potential increase in inability to obtain building materials?
I mean, listen, I don't see 20+ rents, but I think for us, we only hold in Suffolk County, so I can't speak to what's going on in the Nassau County industrial market where taxes are much higher. I think, as you go across the board, I think Melville is somewhere around $15 a foot gross for industrial space. I think as you go into Hauppauge, you're in the $12 to $13 gross range, maybe a little bit more now. And Bohemia and Ronkonkoma, I think is approaching $12 a foot. So I don't see $20 a foot. But again, what could happen is, as a landlord, you may just opt not to do certain deals because of the level of construction and look for more as-is deals because you don't want to pay the increased costs or the timing issues, whether that be the supply issues or the municipality issues. So it may be, I have 20,000 square feet in Hauppauge, I've got 3,000 square feet of office, and all I want to do is paint and carpet that property and move on. So that may be the fallout you see, because again, I don't know how much higher, and it's going to go up, I'm sure, the rents can go and how they can be absorbed by our tenants on Long Island.
Do you anticipate receiving 100% tax abatements on new construction in Brookhaven?
We do, except for the land. You can't abate the land, but yes, we do anticipate that.
Thanks, Ted.
Thank you, Gary.
Good seeing you guys.
You too, even though it's a still picture.
It's fine. You can hear my voice. That's all that matters.
Yeah, it's exactly right.
Mario, you had a question. You're able to talk now as well.
Okay. Hey, Ted. Hey, guys.
Larry.
Thanks for this. It's all good information. I think everything's been covered. You guys covered all the aspects of the industrial market. Now, I had a question pertaining to what Dan had said, congestion on the LIE. And I've always been a proponent for, and thought it necessary, especially since COVID, even pre-COVID, for a bridge tunnel from Sunken Meadow to Bridgeport. I'm wondering where you as a major landlord on Long Island who relies on the ease of trucking for industrial, and we do not want to see the LIE get even more congested as we start to develop more into Suffolk County. What are your thoughts on that? How do we get it done? Is it a need just for the emergency purposes? Because our only source of any freight is really through the city. So even for emergency purposes only, I felt there was a necessity. But what are your thoughts on it? How do we get it done if you are a proponent of it?
Listen, I'm a proponent of anything that helps Long Island, whether it be emergency, from an emergency standpoint or from a business standpoint. I think that's a very interesting question, but I don't think I have the answer for you. I don't know how long it would possibly take to get the entitlements or the time frame it would take to get those entitlements and to build a second means of through a tunnel. I think We just have to wait and see what happens. And again, I don't know that all of this development that's planned right now is really gonna happen. I think time will tell. And I think if the traffic does become severe, to your point, I think the politicians are gonna have to really pay attention to it and come up with some kind of solution. But I don't have that solution.
All right.
So if anybody else has questions from the board, you could raise your hand and Christine can let you in to ask your question.
Guys, I have a question. I guess we touched upon it a bit in the supply and demand conversation, but we're seeing a lot of these private equity funds and user groups paying these big prices on existing industrial buildings. How are you guys competing against these groups? Are you not, when you look at deals, and if you can't speculate that rents are going to reach a certain price, how do you even look at those transactions?
Well, they're underwriting these deals based on cost of money right now. So they're underwriting deals, these funds, to come in, whether they're buying an existing building or they're going to build a building. I think I think the problem is if you're buying land, if you're a fund and you say, well, I'm going to buy those 10 acres for, whatever the number is, $2 million, $3 million an acre. I'm going to put up 150,000 square feet and I'll underwrite the construction at $150 a foot. When it comes time to actually build the building, when they get their approvals, will the 150 now be $170 a foot? Will it be more to build the building? And B, what are they underwriting in rent? And I go back to my original statement. People are underwriting rents at very large dollars. You're all in this business just like me, a long time, especially, Gary, Mario, all of you doing industrial real estate. Do you have clients on Long Island who tell you, show me where to sign for $18 a foot net? If you do, great, then they got nothing to worry about. So the difference is Rechler is an operator of real estate. Rechler has been doing this for over 60 years. From grandfather Willie Rechler, Donald and Roger Rechler, to now Mitchell and Greg Rechler. We build, we're here, we're not looking to build, to rent, to flip, to make a profit. We're here for the long haul. Part of the needs that we have is we are able to help our existing tenants who need to expand, give them a turnkey installation, and it's a easier transaction because they have a lease with us somewhere else, and we intend to move them to a new development. So I would love to have a conversation with everybody a year from now. I'd like to have this conversation in a year from now. I'd like to be invited back a year from now. What went up in that time frame? What buildings are online? What got leased and at what kind of price? Not to Amazon, to somebody else other than Amazon. That would be a conversation we should all do together a year from now.
So I have another question. Being that you have 98% occupancy, I imagine that you.
98.5, don't forget the 0.5.
Okay. So I imagine that you have the ability to really pick and choose your tenants now. And I was wondering if you're looking more closely at use and whether you've changed your let's say your credit or financial requirements of these tenants. You can certainly be, I would think, a lot more discerning about who you're going to have as a tenant in the portfolio.
Yes, well, use always mattered, even in a bad market, right? So, if you're going to take a tenant, you want to make sure that it's not a tenant that could cause environmental issues, or it's a multi-tenanted building, have too many trucks to interfere with your other tenants. All that has always mattered to Rechler, as did the financials of that tenant. We really vet out financials, because if we're signing a 10-year lease to last that 10 years, if anything, over the last few years, we have relet to major credit, so that if there is a stop to this market and an adjustment to this market, whatever that means, we feel comfortable with who we've allowed to come in as our tenants. So I think use always mattered, never because of the property and the specific use. And I think financials are even more important today. So you're right. It's a frustrating thing for a broker to bring us a deal and to say, this is not the right deal for us. And it's normally not the use. Because the use, they tell us, they call Chris, this is what I have. We'll tell them whether they should even show the space. I think the frustration lies in the financials and who we're accepting from a financial standpoint. And I really think it's important, especially for the brokers who are just starting out in this business. That's a major concern for any landlord, because if you're going to spend money, move a tenant in, it's not just about the TI, the free rent, the brokerage. It's about the ability for this tenant to live throughout the term of that lease. That's what's important from a landlord standpoint. People say, I'll give you more security. It's not about more security. Because if the market turns and the $12 space is now worth $10, worse than that, the demand isn't there. You could be getting back a building and not just leasing it for less dollars, but not leasing it at all. And, it's hard to imagine that today. But, we lived through the financial crisis of 2008 and the impact it had on the industrial market. It was a different market. And, you just want to try to secure your portfolio.
Christina, are there any other questions? Anybody else trying to raise their hand?
No, I don't see anybody at this time, Michael.
All right, so I guess in conclusion, I'd really like to thank you, Ted, and the team for being with us today. We really enjoyed hearing about all the issues that were covered today. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Dan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, guys, thank you so much. This has been fantastic. Your whole team at Rechler, Jill, Chris, Ted, to say that you guys are broker friendly is an understatement. When the surveys come out and you're on there, we look forward to working with you. We appreciate everything. You always respect what a good broker brings to the table. You value it, and that's how you guys make deals. And it's appreciated. And you're good friends of CIBS, and all your hard work is evidenced in the great product you put out on Long Island. So for that, we just want to say thank you. And thanks again for your time today.
Thank you very much. And as we said, we love doing business with all of you. We look forward to seeing all of you for the balance of this year and doing some deals, and hope that everyone stays safe and healthy. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.